Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Elise. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are doing a wrap up and I'm doing a little change in my wrap ups. I am essentially just going to lump wrap ups in more of a recently reading type of style. So whenever I feel like I have enough books to talk about, I'm just going to talk about them. I'm not necessarily going to stick to what I've read in a given month. That just works so much better for me now that I'm trying to do a little bit more reading projects like themed vlogs, because I feel the pressure to get them done by the end of the month, but that's not really how my reading works. So I'm just gonna go more loosey-goosey with it. Check in when I have some to check in about and when I finish some of the vlogs that I've been working on. So that is what we're going to be doing today. Because it was my first time doing this, I do have a decent amount of books to check in about. So we'll hopefully go through them fairly quickly. I am going to talk about the books that I have not reviewed in vlogs already first, and then I'll quickly chat about the books that were in the vlogs. You're always going to get more detailed information in the vlog than you are in the wrap up, but I know some people don't like watching those videos, so this is a good place if you just want to see only reviews, and I'm putting them at the end. So if you just are here for the books that I haven't spoken about already on my channel, you can watch it and then hop off. And for the people who want to stay to see every book that I've read recently, you can. So hopefully everybody's happy. Now let's go ahead and get into the 4 books that I have not already talked about in previous videos on my channel. The first one was a buddy read that I did in the beginning of February. I read this over Valentine's Day. It is a romance and I read it with my friend Kat. This is Do Your Worst by Rosie, Danan, and it's published by Berkeley. This is a supernatural type romance, but like very light on the supernatural. So Riley, our female lead, is a curse breaker. So she has a family lineage of breaking curses. She has to deal with all of the modern day skepticism around breaking curses and people essentially thinking that it's a hoax. And then our male lead, Clark, is an archaeologist. Is that what he is? I think he's an archaeologist. And they both get sent to a castle that purportedly has a very long curse around it. There's a new kind of property management company that is trying to develop the property into a tourist destination, but nobody wants to come because all these crazy things happen there. So she's brought on to try and break this curse, and he is brought on to try and look for historical items before they do renovations on the castle. So that's the setup for this book. Overall, I thought this was a decent romance, but it was not one of my favorites. I think it was a little bit middle of the road for me. I thought there was good banter between the characters. I thought it was pretty funny at times, and not every romance is genuinely funny, and this one I felt like did a good job of that. The periphery characters or the cast that we get were interesting enough. I enjoyed having them inject a little bit of distraction from the romance into the plot, and I thought because there's this slight supernatural element, it helped to suspend some of the disbelief that you inherently need to do with a romance. So those I think are the strengths of this book. Things that I didn't like is the first sex scene, of which there are a couple. I think there are maybe 3 in here, 3 or 4. The first sex scene I felt like was a little bit too rushed for the type of sex that they were engaging with. I just felt like there wasn't enough talk beforehand, and so that bothered me a little bit. And then there was a little bit of like contradictory nature in our main character Riley, where she wants to come off as professional because most people think that she's sort of a quack and she's constantly trying to prove herself. So in an effort to maintain professionalism, she sort of like pushes herself to be overly touchy with our main lead, and I'm like, that just like doesn't make sense in my brain, or like why would it make sense in her brain? You're trying to be professional, so you think the way to be professional is to prove to him that you can touch him and it doesn't mean anything. Like that's definitely a romance gimmick that just doesn't make any sense. It is unprofessional to seductively touch your coworkers, so that bothered me as well. So some give and take with this book. It overall still a fun, happy time. It was exactly the type of thing that I wanted to read around Valentine's Day, so that is Do Your Worst. Next up, let's see, I need to scroll down. Oh, okay, next up, we have a heavy hitter that I read, and that is James by Pecival Everett. This one is done by Doubleday, which is an imprint of Penguin Random House. And this one was also a buddy read. This was the book that I read this year with my husband. So every year we read a book together and we call it Mini Book Club. He is still actively reading it. You can see his bookmark in there. He's about 100 pages in, but I have already finished it, which always tends to happen. I finished the book before him. I have some thoughts about this book. I know obviously this is extremely popular. It's predicted to potentially win the Pulitzer Prize this year. It won the National Book Award in fiction. So much beloved, and I overall really loved this book too. It is extremely well written, and this is my first Pecival Everett. I didn't think it was going to be my first Pecival Everett. I wanted to read The Trees for a while now, but when my husband said he was going to be reading this book and he never reads fiction. What is it with straight men only wanting to read nonfiction? It is an epidemic. But he finally was going to read a fiction book, and I said, absolutely, I will of course read this with you. Now, this book, as many people know by now, is inspired by Huckleberry Finn, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. That book is from Huck's perspective. This book is from James's perspective, or Jim in the original book, who is a runaway slave, and you follow his journey of initially fleeing and kind of where it goes from there. If you haven't read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, I don't want to ruin that for you. Again, this is extremely well written. I was a little bit nervous in the beginning because this book is separated into part 1 and part 2. And during part 1, I was like, okay, this book is good, but I don't understand why everyone's raving about it as much as they are. And then when I got to part 2, it really ramped up a notch, and I thoroughly loved that portion. This book has a ton of plot going on. You get a lot of additional plot from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn because it's from James's perspective, and there are points in time where James and Huck are not together, and so you never got to know what was happening with James during those moments. And one of the most interesting things about this book for me was the narration style. This book is written in first-person point of view, from James's point of view, which I think is a smart choice for what this book is trying to do, right? Give James a voice. But the feeling of this book is very reminiscent of third-person limited point of view for me. I kept getting confused. I'd be like, wait, are we in third-person limited? No, he's talking about himself in the first person. And it was this like level of emotional remove that kept catching me off guard. And in the beginning, I couldn't really understand it. And maybe now I don't even fully understand it. I have no doubt that that was an intentional choice for there to be some emotional distance. It is not a thing that personally I like a lot in books. If we're gonna have emotional remove from a character, the main character, I really want it to be very baked in to the rest of the book, and for me to clearly see why I'm getting emotional remove. I couldn't totally feel that with this. So that was my one questioning of like, why do I feel distance when it's a first person perspective? There's lots of things happening and I felt like I should be closer to James, but I couldn't quite fully get there in the way that I was wanting to. You let me know if you felt that way, if you have read this too. And part of that might be that I have, like I said, not read Pecival Everett before, so I'm not sure if this is just part of his writing style. I'll be really curious when I do read The Trees to see if that I feel the same emotional distance from the main character in that. But at this point in time, I only have this to go by. So that was an intriguing element to me. Other thing that I will mention that with this is that it is genuinely funny, and that does seem like it is part of Pecival Everett's writing style from what I've heard about his other books. There was such a funny moment that I was dying in this, where he just says like, white people love guilt. And I'm like, man, don't they ever. White people do love guilt. So that was hilarious. There were lots of little punchy moments like that. It was definitely the humor that you might find in like the movie The Menu. If you saw that, our main female lead in that, Anya Taylor-Joy, is sort of trying to tell the guy that she went with like, he's making fun of you. Like, do you not realize he's making fun of you? And Percival Everett is making fun of white people in the most hilarious way, and it's so true. And I really loved that about this book. I loved getting made fun of as a white person and being like, yeah, we totally do that. We totally do that. So I enjoyed James thoroughly for those moments. And yeah, I really love this book overall. I get why so many people have really praised it, and I'm excited to read more from this author. So that is James. Next up, for the books I have not already talked about, let's see. Oh, I read Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy. Let me check the publisher on this one. I have my laptop in front of me. This one is published by Flatiron Books, and I read this via audio. It's my first Charlotte McConaghy. I really enjoyed this one as well. This one is really a character study. So we have a cast of characters, 5 characters that we're mainly following, and we get perspectives from all of them. We start the novel with this woman, Rowan, who washes up ashore on this research island that is almost uninhabited. The only inhabitants at this point are a family, so a father and his 3 kids. She washes up ashore and they find her and try and bring her back to health. She's in pretty poor condition. She's almost died when they get to her. And we slowly start to get this backstory that really centers around the family is keeping a secret from Rowan, and Rowan is keeping a secret from the family, but we don't know what the secrets are, and that's the tension in the book, and you start to unravel what those secrets are as we go on. In the backdrop of that, we're getting sort of a climate fiction novel because this research island, which primarily stores a seed bank, one of the largest seed banks in the world, is slowly going underwater. So they're having to evacuate the island, and that's why all of the other staff and researchers have left, because this family is just in charge of finishing packing up the seeds so they can all leave the island. The world outside of this island has been ravaged by natural disasters, but we get only vague inklings of what that looks like. So the climate fiction stuff is definitely in the background. It's not the main point of this book. The main point of this book is really the character work, and the characters are very fascinating to follow. The pacing of this book was really well done. You are in really good hands with this author, and I really appreciated that. So that is Wild Dark Shore. I would definitely recommend if you like a really strong character-driven novel where the themes are somewhat in the background. I do personally like my themes to be amped up a notch, but I think this was, again, so well done and would definitely recommend it to people. I think it's going to be really accessible and a lot of people are going to like it, and I think they already have been liking it. So that is Wild Dark Shore. And then lastly, for the books that have not been in vlogs, we have The Use of Photography. This is by Annie Ernaux and Marc Marie. It's translated by Alison from the French. This is a very slim nonfiction novel by Annie Ernaux, which is her kind of trademark memoiristic style book. But this one is interesting because it is co-authored. And what this book does is it follows a relationship between these 2 authors through photographs that they take. They're specifically taking photographs in the aftermath of them having sex. So you get the photograph described, and then you get an entry from both of them, basically a journal entry from both of them about what the photo evokes for them. Very fascinating premise. And I'll say the photos are about items. They're not like photographing their bodies or anything like that. The photos are just about like the room that they were in, or items or pieces of clothing strewn across the ground, that type of thing. And I really enjoyed this. There is this unique like voyeuristic quality to the memoirs that Annie Ernaux writes that for me bring out the best elements of voyeurism. And I don't necessarily mean that sexually, but just getting to see these mundane almost parts of life, having someone fully lay out for you all of the emotions they were having at the time, all of the thoughts that they had at the time, making connections in their life to different things. And I love getting this window into someone's humanity. I really felt like I got that in this book. And bonus, you get it from two people. And it's really interesting to compare and contrast their journal entries and how sometimes there's a lot of similarities, but there's also these vast differences that incorporate their own experiences leading up to this point. And I love the two different perspectives that people can have on the same thing. The other thing that I want to mention about this book that I think is important is there's almost like a third character in here of grief. At the time that these two people are in a relationship together, Annie Ernaux has cancer and is actively going through treatment. And that's talked about heavily throughout the book. It seeps into their journal entries, just like it seeps into their relationship. And it's almost this other person in their relationship, this like cancer that hangs over everything. And I thought that was fascinating as well. So loved this book. If you like Annie Ernaux, you will love this too. And I thought this was such a unique type of memoir. We get two people, we get these photos. There's just so many creative elements dropped into this, and I really loved it. So that is the use of photography. Now let's go ahead and quickly get into these 6 books that have come out in vlogs since we last spoke. So first up, we have my Republic of Consciousness vlog. There were 3 books that I completed in that one. The first being Like a Sky Inside by Jakuta Alikavozovic, translated by Levin Becker from the French and published by Fern Books. A little slight thing. I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and I've talked about this in some of the comments on my channel with other people who have read it, that this book has grown on me immensely since reading it. I read it at the very beginning of February, and I have still thought about it. I've had conversations in my real life about some of the ideas that this book presents. And I generally don't love visual art, and this book talks a lot about visual art because this book is an essay. The Republic of Consciousness Prize is saying it's fiction. I don't really think it's fiction. Even on the back, it's marketed as an essay about the author spending the night in the Louvre. This was a kind of creative project that a cluster of museums did, where they let a creative spend the night in one of their museums, and then they make something out of that experience. So in this case, a book was made. We get a lot about identity, where our identity comes from. Does it come from the place that we're from? Does it come from our family? Does it come from culture? That is a really fascinating conversation going on in here. We also get a lot about art, what art means, how art is meant to be consumed, the contrast between art being kind of eternal or having the facade of being eternal and life being very temporal. There's so many interesting elements to this book, and I definitely want to reread it. So I'm so happy that the Republic of Consciousness Prize put this on my radar, because I don't think I would have at least picked it up anytime soon, if not. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed this book. If you want a book that really makes you think a lot, this is the book for you. Absolutely loved it. It's my favorite of the books that I read for that vlog. So that is Like a Sky Inside. Also, I will say, this, as the title might suggest, has a ton of symbolism around the sky. So if you also enjoy a book with a heavy, heavy dose of symbolism, this would be another good pick for you. Next up, we have Gifted by Suzuki. This one is translated from the Japanese by Allison, Markin, Powell, and published by Transit Books. And this book fell a little bit flat for me. It was my least favorite of the 3 that I completed for that vlog. We're following our, I think maybe unnamed main character, or I just forgot her name, who is a hostess in Japan. Not like a restaurant hostess, but like an evening club hostess. So think kind of like sex work nightclub type of thing. We get some of the like everyday happenings of what it's like for her to be in that profession, but we're also getting a lot about her relationship with her mother. Her mother is ill and in the hospital, and our main character is having a lot of flashbacks to her childhood with her mom. Her mom was abusive, but there's an interesting parallel between the two of them that is that a spoiler for me to say? I guess I won't say it. There's an interesting parallel between the two of them, and our narrator is trying to reconcile with that and just really decide what she wants with her life. She's feeling pretty lost and in a transitional place, and we get to follow that journey. This one for me lacked some cohesion. I wanted some more thematic cohesion, but I'm saying that maybe as a matter of personal taste. I think it does make sense if the character's feeling lost for us as the reader to feel a little bit lost. We're going back and forth in the timelines. There's kind of some like stream of consciousness, like it's not true stream of consciousness style, but stream of consciousness like elements to the way that our narrator is thinking. So I can see why that would make sense for this book. I just didn't really like it very much. So that's my take on Gifted. I think could be for a lot of people, was just not ultimately for me. I thought it was so-so. And then lastly, for the Republic of Consciousness Prize, I read To and Fro by Leah Hager Cohen. This is published by Bellevue Literary Press. This is a mirrored novel, so you can start from the Fro side, which is blue, or the To side, which is yellow. I started from To, and you read up until the middle, and then at some point right near the middle, the prose flips and it starts being upside down. So it starts dividing the page, and then once you get through that middle section, it's all upside down and you need to flip to the other side. We're following a young girl who is going on a journey of life, a quest. This book was so whimsical and nostalgic and magical for me. I thoroughly enjoyed my reading experience of it. I did like the To side, it's upside down, but I did like the To side better. And I'm really glad that I started with To. I don't think I would have liked it as much if I started with Fro. Also, I think To is a really good starting point because you tend to get a feeling of what Fro is going to be as you're reading To. If I had started from Fro, I don't think I would have been able to anticipate what the other side was going to be. And I almost liked that more, that I got to look forward to the other part, knowing what I thought it might be. Does that make any sense? I'm trying not to say any spoilers, but I don't normally like a young main character, but this was so endearing. You really felt like it was an accurate picture of what it's like to be a kid and what it's like to be a kid who feels different and maybe is a little bit different from the average child. It was a really good mix of being naive and wanting to learn and soaking up all this knowledge and information and life experience, but also sometimes coming out with these like profound feelings that just felt so true. And I cried during this book. I laughed during this book. It just held so many wonderful emotions for me. Just like A Sky Inside, this book I felt like was amazing brain food with a side of soul food. This one I felt was amazing soul food with a side of brain food. Would definitely recommend. So those are the books from the Republic of Consciousness blog. And then for the adaptations blog, we had 3 additional books, including what is at this point my favorite book I've read so far this year, and that is Margot's Got Money Troubles. This is by Rufi Thorpe, and it's published by William Morrow. I adore this book. This book is so well written. It's extremely smart. It's so funny. It just contains everything I would want a book to have. We're following our main character, Margot, who has an affair with her professor at her community college, which, gross. The professor is 100% in the wrong, and she ends up getting pregnant. Everyone in her life tells her that she should not keep the baby, but she feels like it's the right thing to do. And our main character is constantly grappling with what it means to be a good person and to do the right thing. So she has the baby and immediately is like, oh shit, what have I done? I can't support the baby, and the baby's father basically wants nothing to do with either of them. So she decides to start an OnlyFans account in order to help provide financially for her and her kid, because her current waitressing job requires childcare for her to go to, and she can't afford the childcare. So that starts us on this journey. I'll quickly just say some of the things I loved about it. I loved the cast of characters. Every side character was so well fleshed out, especially her father. Their relationship dynamic is so unique, and I thought they did a really good job of paralleling her professional work on OnlyFans with his professional work as a retired wrestler. We get a lot of commentary around gender in this book. We get a lot of commentary on social services in this book. I really can't stress enough how fascinating and well done this is. There are, of course, some plot elements that are unrealistic. I didn't even care. I did not care at all. I felt like it fit perfectly with what the book was trying to do, and that is exactly what I want to suspend my disbelief for. If it fits all these layers of the book, then of course I'm gonna go on that journey. So that is Margot's Got Money's Troubles. Ugh, so good. I can't wait for the TV adaptation of it. And I read all of these as adaptations, if I didn't already say that. Next up, we have the thriller, The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This one's published by Scout Press. This one didn't work well for me. Here we're following a woman on a small luxury cruise. She is a travel journalist covering the grand voyage of this cruise. But on her first night, she thinks that she witnesses a murder, but nobody else believes her. This one was on the opposite spectrum of unbelievable for me. This was like so wildly off the charts. I thought the main character needed a lot of editing work. I thought she felt dumbed down unnecessarily, and that bothered me. I think she could have been a lot smarter and the book still would have worked perfectly. So struggled with this one. Still excited to watch the film because this one is going to be a film. But my biggest qualms with this is I think it needed some more editing. So that is The Woman in Cabin 10. And then we also have one that was a miss for me, which is The People We Met on Vacation, or no, not the people. People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This one is published by Berkeley as well. I have read Emily Henry before and enjoyed that. I read Beach Read. This one also felt really unbelievable for me. The main character I felt was extremely selfish, and that bothered me throughout the book, and just overall couldn't get invested enough to root for this relationship. So this one, definitely a struggle for me. Again, excited for the movie. This is probably the adaptation that I'm least excited for of the three, but I still want to watch it because I'm excited about the casting. But I guess I didn't even tell you what it's about. So this one, if you want to know what it's about Alex and Poppy. They meet each other in college and they become best friends. They take a trip every summer. So we're getting a current day timeline where something has happened between the two of them. A rift has been caused, but we don't know what. And they haven't spoken in 2 years, but they're going to go on a trip with each other for the first time in 2 years. And then we alternate by getting flashbacks of the previous trips they've taken the 10 summers prior. One trip at a time. And that also bothered me. I thought the pacing was really stifled in the current day timeline because we kept going back. So yeah, didn't love this, and that's okay. So that is the last book. I hope these reviews were helpful in some way. If you read any of these books, please let me know what you thought of them. Or if you're interested in them, let me know that as well. And what have you been reading recently that you've really loved or hated? I mean, you can tell me that too. And we can chat about why you hated it. So we will leave it there, friends, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.